All right, looks like we've balanced out. We may have a few more folks that are going to trickle in, but I'll go ahead and kick things off. So, welcome everyone. First and foremost, if you haven't heard from Lehigh yet this year, I wanted to send hope everyone had a merry holiday and a happy new year and are enjoying the start of the new year. And wanted to send an appreciation and well wishes from us here at Lehigh University. So. My name is Bryce Neff. I'm the Associate Director of College Affinity and Faculty Engagement here with the Alumni Relations Office to host today's Mountain Talk. A couple of quick housekeeping notes. First, to answer Jess's question, yes, the presentation will be recorded. So if you want to share it out with a friend or a colleague or a family member, you can do that. It'll take a couple of days for our marketing team to process everything, but once that's ready, it'll be posted to the Alumni Relations YouTube channel. Also, you can use the chat at the bottom of the screen to submit any questions that you have for our speaker today. You can use the setting to send your question to either just the hosts and panelists, but if you set it to all, then everyone in the presentation will be able to see, and that can sometimes spark some interesting conversations or some greater depth to some of the questions that have been submitted. So to kick things off, for today's Mountain Talk on making history on Broadway after Hamilton. So traditionally, history musicals shows dramatize real people and events of the past represented a small number of musicals. When Hamilton opened in 2015, it starred the show's creator, Lin-Manuel Miranda, in the role of Alexander Hamilton. Critics and fans were quick to assert that a revolution had come to Broadway. In the 10 years since Hamilton, history musicals appear to be on the rise. And in today's talk, Dr. Monica Hershberger, Associate Professor of Music at Lehigh University, will discuss trends on Broadway, examining Hamilton's approach to history, and take a look at several other historical musicals, including Six, Suffs, and Operation Mincemeat. So Dr. Hershberger joined the Department of Music at Lehigh in 2023, a musicologist specializing in the history of opera in the United States. She is committed to examining intersections of music and power. Her work has been recognized by the National Opera Association, funded by the Society for American Music, quoted in the New York Times, and published in journals such as the Journal of American Musicological, that's a mouthful, American Musicological Society, and the Journal of the Society for American Music. Dr. Hershberger earned her PhD in musicology from Harvard University in 2017. Before shifting to musicology, she earned degrees in piano performance from Bowling Green State University and Michigan State University. So you'll please join me in welcoming Dr. Monica Hershberger to the stage. Monica, why don't you feel free and take this away? I'm very interested to hear about your presentation. Hamilton was the first play on Broadway that really captured my attention. So I'm looking forward to hearing kind of how things have changed in the last decade.
Thanks so much for that introduction. And thank you all for being here. I'm going to take just a moment to share my screen, get everything ready to go. All right. I'm really happy to have this opportunity to give this mountain talk. And I'll be talking about some things that I guess lie a little bit afield of my primary research interests. But some things that I've been thinking about a lot lately, and I think maybe there's a book sort of a couple years down the road that I might want to write. And these are certainly some things that I've been thinking a lot about in my teaching, particularly in the last 3 years that I've been on the faculty here at Lehigh. So when Hamilton opened at the Richard Rodgers Theatre on August 6, 2015, it seemed like everyone agreed that a revolution had come to Broadway. As many of you probably know, Hamilton is a sung and rapped through musical about the life of Alexander Hamilton, penned by Lin-Manuel Miranda. Miranda considered Hamilton one of the unsung heroes of the American Revolution and of the history of the early United States more generally. According to Miranda, Hamilton is, quote, a story about America then, told by America now. This is perhaps most obvious in the casting, where we have non-white actors playing the roles of the founding fathers and other historical figures. Prior to Hamilton, as you heard in Bryce's introduction, history musicals, meaning shows that dramatize real people and events of the past, represented a relatively small slice of musicals more broadly. And in general, they tended to appeal to a rather niche audience. But with Hamilton, Hamilton had mass appeal, and it brought many people to Broadway who maybe previously had not been particularly interested. And in the 10 years since Hamilton, it kind of seems to me that the history musical is having a moment on Broadway. And so this is what I'd like to explore with you today. But before we really dive in, I'm going to just back up briefly and give you a little bit of context and a sense of my background, kind of where I'm coming from. So my research centers on the history of opera and musical theater in the United States. I published my first book in March of 2023, and then a couple months later, I joined the faculty here at Lehigh. And for the past 3 years, I've been teaching a variety of music history courses. And when I teach musical theater history, I've been doing it through something that the College of Arts and Sciences calls the Big Question Seminar. So every first year student in the College of Arts and Sciences is required to take a big question seminar. And the idea behind these seminars is they ask students to engage with a large, kind of multifaceted question, maybe a question that doesn't have like a super easy or super obvious answer. So this past fall, my seminar's question was, what is so American about the American musical? And in crafting this question, I was inspired by one of my favorite books on the American musical. It's a book called The American Musical and the Formation of National Identity. And it's by Raymond Knapp. One of the kind of key arguments in this book is, quote, that the American musical is almost always concerned, at least on some level, with constructions of America. And so in my seminar, we essentially tested Raymond Knapp's assertion, looking at a wide range of musicals, including those that are listed on this slide here. And you can see that I've included some musicals that were written outside the United States, but that had a major impact on American audiences. So we studied these musicals by reading scripts, by listening to cast albums, by watching filmed performances, watching film adaptations, reading lots of scholarship on musical theater. But none of this approaches the experience of live theater, of seeing a show for real, you know? And so one of the things that I've really enjoyed doing these last 3 years is taking Lehigh students to Broadway to see a show. And I've tried to prioritize taking students to see a relatively recent show, like a show from the last 5 or so years, rather than a revival of an older show. So in the fall of 2023, we went to see Hadestown. In the fall of 2024, we saw Suffs. And then just this past fall, 2025, we saw Ragtime. Now, Ragtime was a revival, so I sort of broke with my kind of prioritizing of newer shows. And I did this because I had been contacted by Rabbi Steve Nathan and Professor Jody Eichler-Levine, and they wondered if my class wanted to partner with the Center for Jewish Student Life and the Jewish Studies program on sort of this combined trip to Broadway. And I thought that was too cool of a kind of collaborative opportunity to resist. Plus, I felt like this show, Ragtime, really spoke to some of the key themes around our big question. And as I'll point out later, I think the show also maybe speaks to kind of the moment that the history musical is having right now on Broadway. So every time that I've taught my Big Question seminar, I've taught Hamilton. And every time I've considered taking students to see Hamilton, I've considered having Hamilton be the show. But I've always picked something else. In part because I know at least some students will come to the class already knowing Hamilton really well. Like there's going to be at least one student that can sing and rap it all the way through. And I kind of want to try to expand students' understanding of contemporary musical theater. When I chose Suffs as the show in 2024, I think that's when I really began to kind of think about Hamilton's kind of long-standing significance as a history musical and kind of what that might mean for musical theater history more broadly. This is a screenshot of an early review of Suffs in the New York Times. At this point, Suffs was still in previews at the Public Theater. The Public Theater is the same off-Broadway venue where Hamilton got its start. And you can tell from the headline, Young, Scrappy, and Hungry for the Right to Vote. Suffs was very much being positioned as a kind of heir to Hamilton with this quoting of some lyrics from Hamilton. So to sort of understand or unpack this proposed lineage, I think it'll be helpful to kind of think about precisely what a history musical is, how Hamilton functions as a history musical, and then how shows since Hamilton have sought to take on history and maybe also take on Hamilton. We'll see. Here, I'm going to highlight the work of a friend and colleague of mine, Alyssa Harbert. She's an associate professor of music at DePauw University. In 2018, she wrote this great article called Hamilton and History Musicals. So according to Harbert, history musicals dramatize real people and events of the past with the goal of both entertaining and educating the audience. The defining features of a history musical are that it's promoted and received as telling a more or less true story, and that it emphasizes some degree of historical accuracy. If it is openly fictional, it can instead be termed a period musical. Harbert has this great chart of selected history musicals leading up to Hamilton. So you can see she starts here in 1925 with Dearest Enemy. Then we get Fiorello, then Ben Franklin in Paris, 1776, Jesus Christ Superstar, Pacific Overtures, 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue, Evita, Assassins, Titanic, Parade, The Civil War, The Scottsboro Boys, Bloody Bloody Andrew Jackson, Hamilton, and Come From Away. And you can see, some of these shows were critically and commercially successful, but none in the kind of record smashing way that Hamilton was. On this slide, I've listed a selection of history musicals since Hamilton, starting with Come From Away, so Six, Suffs, and Operation Mincemeat. I also put Ragtime on here with an asterisk next to it, because although Ragtime is best termed a period musical, it's based on E.L. Doctorow's novel that is set in 1906. But the novel and also the musical feature a lot of historical figures. So people like Booker T. Washington, Emma Goldman, Harry Houdini. And I kind of wonder if part of the reason that Lincoln Center chose to revive Broadway at this time, revive Ragtime on Broadway at this time, had to do with the popularity of historical figures on stage. And also the fact that I think that the issues that these figures have to contend with, issues like race relations, debates about immigration, debates about workers' rights. These are things that still seemed so relevant in the 21st century. Because that's the thing about a history musical. It's never really just about the past. The way that Harbert puts it, she says, history musicals are never solely about history. They are also vehicles for cultural commentary relevant to the present day. They often reflect present day ideologies more than they attempt to open an objective window onto an irretrievable past. This is certainly true of Hamilton. Lin-Manuel Miranda has always been very vocal about the source material that he drew on for Hamilton, biographer Ron Chernow's 2004 biography. Miranda apparently told Chernow, "I want historians to take this seriously." And for the most part, historians have taken Hamilton as this piece about the past seriously. At the same time, though, Hamilton is clearly very steeped in the present. The casting of people of color in the roles of white historical figures, for example, makes a statement about race and about notions of inclusivity in the present. Leslie Odom Jr., who played Aaron Burr in the original Broadway cast, has addressed this issue. He stated, "It is quite literally taking the history that someone has tried to exclude us from and reclaiming it. We are saying we have the right to tell it too." Some of the songs also prompt the audience to really think about the present. And I'm going to point just to one. That's Hamilton's final number, Who Lives, Who Dies, Who Tells Your Story? This song's repeated question asks audiences to think critically about how histories are written and about the meanings of history in the present. Interestingly, as Harbert points out, this song suddenly brings the perspective of Eliza Hamilton to the fore. Eliza Hamilton previously had been sort of this background character, but here at the end of the show, she really comes to the front. As Harbert writes, the audience learns that the real Eliza Hamilton spent her long life establishing her husband's legacy, publishing his writings, interviewing his colleagues, and doing the work that would inform historians for centuries. When the perspective suddenly shifts, it prompts the audience to reflect on the preceding 2 hours, compelling a reevaluation of not only Alexander's legacy, but also Eliza's. Let's take a listen.
Let me tell you what I wish I'd known when I was young and dreamed of glory. You have no control. Who lives, who dies, who tells your story?
President Jefferson. I'll give him this. His financial system is a work of genius. I couldn't undo it if I tried. And I tried.
Who lives, who dies, who tells your story?
President Madison.
He took our country from bankruptcy to prosperity. I hate to admit it, but he doesn't get enough credit for all the credit he gave us.
Who lives, who dies, who tells your story?
Every other founding father story gets told. Every other founding father gets to grow old.
And when you're gone, who remembers your name? Who keeps your flame? Who tells your story? Who tells your story? Who tells your story?
Myself back in the narrative. I stop wasting time on tears. I live another 50 years. It's not enough. I interview every soldier who fought by your side.
She tells our story.
I try to make sense of your thousands of pages of writings. You really do write, but you're running out of time. I rely on Angelica. While she's alive, we tell your story. She is buried in Trinity Church near you. When I needed her most, she was right on time. And I'm still not through. I ask myself, what would you do if you had more time? The Lord in his kindness, he gives me what you always wanted. He gives me more time. I raise funds in D.C. for the Washington Monument.
She tells my story.
I speak out against slavery. You could have done so much more if you only had time. And when my time is up, have I done enough? Will they tell your story? Oh, can I show you what I'm proudest of?
The orphanage.
I established the first private orphanage in New York City.
The orphanage.
I helped raise hundreds of children. I get to see them growing up. In their eyes I see you, Alexander. I see you every time. And when my time is up, have I done enough? Will they tell your story? Oh, I can't wait to see you again. It's only a matter of time.
Will they tell your story? dies? Who tells your story?
All right, if we turn now, if we turn now to Suffs, we can see that this musical, like Hamilton, ends up being about both the past and the present. So, written by Shayna Tobe, Suffs focuses on the historical events leading up to the ratification of the 19th Amendment in 1920, emphasizing the role of Alice Paul, which Tobe played on stage. Early in the show, we learn that we are not meant to approach Paul or any of the other suffragists that we meet as uncomplicated heroines. And I'll point out that this is one of the criticisms that, as Harbert points out, some historians leveraged against Hamilton, arguing that it sometimes fell into the old trap of hero worship, that it did not truly deal with the complexities and the struggles of marginalized peoples. Suffs tries to deal with some of these complexities and struggles. The song's fourth number, Wait My Turn, is sung by the character Ida B. Wells. Wells is responding to Alice Paul, who is preparing to lead the women's suffrage procession in Washington, D.C. on the day of President Woodrow Wilson's inauguration. Having learned that some Southern delegates object to marching side by side with Black women, Paul asks Wells to participate in a separate, quote unquote, colored delegation. Wait My Turn is Wells's response, and it's this stinging number that reminds the audience of how racism came into play in the women's suffrage movement. And I think it may also prompt the audience to think about racial divides that persist into the present day. We'll take a listen.
Wait my turn. When will you white women ever learn? I had the same old talk with Carrie Chapman Catt 20 years ago. I thought you might be better, but you still don't know. You want me to wait my turn, to simply put my sex before my race. Oh, why don't I leave my skin at home and powder up my face? Guess who always waits her turn, who always ends up in the back? Us lucky ones born both female and black. Wait my turn. Well, I sure don't see you waiting yours. No, you're preaching we demand it now, while knocking down locked doors. But you want me to wait my turn so you don't offend your Southern base. Since when does a radical roll over for bigots in the first place? That's not leadership, Alice, it's cowardice. I hear you quote Frederick Douglass on your soapbox, intending to include and impress us. But in the press you play down our involvement, and here behind closed doors you attempt to suppress us. Deeds, not words, says the button on your jacket. I'm so sick of rhetoric with no action to back it. If you don't have the spine to stand with us now, what will it take? You do have a choice, there's always a choice. Which one will you make? Don't you dare tell me to wait my turn. In truth, it's not your call. Either I march with my own state delegates, or I don't march at all. I'm not here to soothe your guilt. That is none of my concern. I won't beg for your approval, which I shouldn't have to earn. So no matter what you tell me, I will not wait one more minute for my turn.
Suffs concludes with the song Keep Marching. And similar to Hamilton's Who Lives, Who Dies, Who Tells Your Story, this song prompts the audience to think about the meaning of the historical narrative that has just unfolded on stage and to really think about its meaning in terms of the present. I think even more than Who Lives, Who Dies, Who Tells Your Story, Keep Marching also really serves as a contemporary call to action. It is a song that literally tells women to keep marching for the things that they believe in. We'll watch just a little bit from the 2024 Tony Awards performance.
You won't live to see the future that you fight for. Maybe no one gets to reach that perfect day. If the work is never over, then how do you keep marching anyway? Do you carry your banner as far as you can, rewriting the world with your imperfect pen, till the next stubborn girl picks it up in a picket line over and over again, and you join in the chorus of centuries chanting to her? The path will be twisted and risky and slow, but keep marching, keep marching. Will you fail or prevail? Well, you may never know, but keep marching, 'cause your ancestors are all the proof you need that progress is possible, not guaranteed. It will only be made if we keep marching on. Keep marching on. Keep marching on. Keep marching on. And remember every mother that you came from. Learn as much from our success as our mistakes. Don't forget your
As Keep Marching suggests, history musicals are often overtly political. And this is one of the things that can make it difficult for a history musical to achieve mainstream success. I think it's worth noting that Suffs, despite achieving critical success, despite winning some Tony Awards, it ran on Broadway for just 301 performances. It's not a lot. The last time I checked, near the end of the 2025 calendar year, Hamilton had racked up 3,693 performances. So it gives you a little bit of a comparison between the two. I'll highlight the work briefly of another friend and colleague of mine, Elizabeth T. Kraft, an associate professor at the University of Utah. Kraft has this great article entitled Headfirst into an Abyss, the Politics and Political Reception of Hamilton, where she talks about sort of the way that Hamilton, at least initially, managed to kind of appeal across traditional party lines. This is something that Suffs, I think, has struggled with. I am sure in part because the show's producers included former Secretary of State and First Lady Hillary Clinton and activist Malala Yousafzai. So there's a very clear kind of political stance behind the show. I want to wrap things up by pointing to two recent British history musicals, Six and Operation Mincemeat. I know that some of you may be joining us in New York this weekend to see Operation Mincemeat. I'm really excited to see the show, and so I want to make sure that I say a little bit about it. Both of these shows, I think, differ from Hamilton and Suffs in that they are much more comedic. So England has this great musical comedy tradition, I don't know, stretching back at least as far as 1728, when the opera, the Beggar's Opera, kind of took London and then a bunch of other cities by storm. So Six gives us a modern retelling of the lives of the six wives of Henry VIII. It's presented in the form of a pop concert slash singing competition. The wives take turns telling their stories to determine who suffered the most with their shared husband. And then eventually, at the end of the show, the women seek to reclaim their individual identities and rewrite their stories. One thing that I think is really fun about the show is that each of the wives is modeled vocally on a couple pop stars. So Catherine of Aragon is modeled on Beyonce and Jennifer Hudson. Anne Boleyn is modeled on Avril Lavigne and Lily Allen. Jane Seymour on Adele, Sia, and Celine Dion. Anna of Cleves on Nicki Minaj and Rihanna. Catherine Howard on Britney Spears and Ariana Grande. And then finally, Catherine Parr on Alicia Keys and Emily Sandé. Operation Mincemeat is based on Operation Mincemeat, the name of a Second World War British deception operation. Rebecca Rubin, writing for Variety, describes the show as, quote, a charming blend of slapstick, farce, and heart that's woven through catchy tunes. Think Monty Python meets The Producers meets Hamilton. Rubin also describes Operation Mincemeat as a, quote, very British musical. And this is something that I've seen a lot in terms of coverage of the show, particularly in the United States, is people commenting on how British the show is. By this, I think they're referring to the approach to the humor, and then also the fact that this offers a slice of like really weird and kind of unbelievable British history. It's been interesting seeing some of the coverage of the show in the United States, because it seems that there were a lot of questions kind of leading up to the show's opening on Broadway. Were Americans going to like the show? Were they going to get the show? It's so British. Was it going to succeed? The show has been extended several times now. It's proving very, very popular with American audiences, and really seems to be resonating at times, sometimes very seriously, with American audiences. Rubin writes at one point, as MI5 officers consider aborting the plan to trick Hitler, one character warns, if people like us just blatantly follow orders, the fascists won't need to bash the door down. They'll have already won. On the West End, it's a throwaway line surrounded by fast-flying comedic movements. In New York, the Declaration has become a moment of catharsis in these fraught political times. So once again, we kind of have this reminder that a history musical, even a slapstick comedic one, is often as much about the present as it is about the past. So I've taken you on this kind of brief tour of history musicals in the 10 years since Hamilton. History musicals seem to be having a moment, some more successful than others, none, at least not yet, as wildly successful as Hamilton. And I think it'll be really interesting to see kind of what's in store for the history musical in the years to come. Before we turn it over to questions, I want to break away from the history musical for 1 second and just make a quick plug, and say that if you are around Lehigh this spring, come into the woods with us. The music department and the theater department are collaborating for the first time in a really long time on a musical. We're going to do Stephen Sondheim and James Lapine's Into the Woods. We have a bunch of shows in April. Liam Gable and Cassie Johnson in the theater department are directing. Sarah Fruit Gallo, Liz Olson, and Kyle Wernke, my colleagues in the music department, are music directing. I'm doing some work with dramaturgy, and it's been a really, really fun process, and we'd love for you to join us.
All right, wonderful. Thank you, Monica. And I'm totally in favor of a shameless plug of supporting Lehigh Theater and Lehigh Music. So definitely, if you're in the area or have the ability to travel to Lehigh's campus to support our students and to support the departments who are helping put it on, that would be wonderful. So I'm going to move it over to questions. So if anybody has questions about anything that was discussed today, please put it in the chat so we can have some further conversation with the remaining time. So Mitchell had a question about Sweeney Todd. So where would where a musical like Sweeney Todd fall into the historical period or historical musical / period spectrum? It's considered to be a fictionalized version of true events, but it's unclear whether the fictionalized version or the true events would supersede the other. So Monica, what are your thoughts around Sweeney Todd's kind of presence in theater and in media this way?
Oh yeah, that's a great question. I mean, I think that's a perfect example of how slippery the boundary between history musical and period musical can be. And I'll be honest that Sweeney Todd is not a show that I have like delved in super deeply myself in terms of how much seems to be fictionalized and how much seems to be historical. So I guess the answer would be that I don't know. I guess you'd want to take a really close look and see how much weighs which one outweighs the other. But at the same time, I don't know that that's always possible. And so I think Mitchell has like picked a great example of the way that these categories are kind of slippery. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I wonder like how much of it is like, with how much of the history being true versus fictionalized. It's like, I'm not super familiar with Sweeney Todd particularly. I saw the Johnny Depp movie. That's about
Right.
it. But yeah, that's a wonderful question. And then Eric, not so much a question, but a comment. So I've seen Hamilton twice as a 70-something and an amateur genealogist. I've come to interpret the final song, Who Lives, as a personal challenge and a cautionary tale. To live a memorable life and to be mindful of the life stories of family and friends who have passed away, and eventually mine after I'm gone. I think this is an amazing reflection, Eric. I think that as it comes to Hamilton's impact and Eliza's reflection on his life and the stories that was told there, it's definitely something that causes one to pause and to reflect and think about, like, what do you think your story is and what was the interpretation of the story from the people that's around you. Monica, do you have any thoughts on this?
Yeah, actually, I think that's a great comment, and it leads me to want to plug another piece of a colleague's work. So I mentioned Raymond Knapp's book, The American Musical and the Formation of National Identity. Um, a couple years after Knapp wrote that book, he wrote sort of like a follow-up book that's called, I think, The American Musical and the Performance of Personal Identity. And I think it kind of speaks to sort of what I think I hear Eric getting at in his comment, which is that like there's always a way of reading these shows kind of um, in this like on these big terms like national kinds of terms. But then there's also the very important piece of it that is what does it mean to you, and how does it help you to understand yourself and your positionality in the world? And I think that's super important.
Yeah, wonderful. So Mark asks, do you have any comments concerning the remake of 1776 with an all-women's cast and LGBTQ overtones? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so I mean that's something that makes me think about like the significance of or sort of where I wonder history musical sort of might be going in sort of the future. I mean, I think one thing that's interesting about one thing that people found so striking about Hamilton was this idea that we could still engage seriously with the history without having everything look and seem precisely how we thought it might have been back in the 18th century. Um, and and I think, I mean, Suffs does this too, where it's a predominantly female and non-binary cast and creative team. When I saw Suffs with my students, I mean, it was it was like amazing to see Grace McLean playing Woodrow Wilson, and amazingly convincing. Like, I mean, and my understanding is like that Operation Mincemeat uh, is it's this comedy troupe called Split Lip that has written the show and is and performs the show, and they each play one main character, and then they also play several other characters, sometimes crossing gender. And so I think we're going to see more maybe of this kind of like more flexibility in terms of how we present some of these previous history musicals and maybe future history musicals as well.
All right, wonderful. So we've got a few minutes left. We may not be able to get to everybody's questions, but I do want to try and touch on at least a couple of them before we wrap up. So thinking forward about what production are you planning to take students to next? And also, Operation Mincemeat is co-produced by Lehigh alumni Michael Seaton, class of '63. So Michael's done incredible work with that, and we're really excited to hear that he's a part of producing this this show. And thinking forward, what are some productions that you're maybe hoping to take students to this upcoming year?
Yeah. So uh, both sadly and not sadly, I'm not going to be teaching this class next year because I'm going to be on sabbatical. So I'm one thing I'm very much going to miss is teaching this class and getting to have this opportunity to do this with students. So I think, the next time that I could probably offer this is in the fall of 2027. And so I'm not sure. I mean, one show that I thought a lot about taking students to this past year, before we settled on Ragtime, was maybe Happy Ending. Several students had recommended that to me, and I always like hearing what do the students think would be interesting. Um, so I'm not sure, but I think, I mean, I'd love to sort of be paying close attention to what seems to be new. I think students enjoy seeing something that's pretty new. That was certainly the case with Suffs. Like they liked that it had just opened, and they felt like they were sort of there at the beginning. And so when that's possible, I think I'd like to do that.
Right. Awesome. And kind of leaning back into the theater productions and the students here on campus and the works that they're going to be doing. So from your perspective, working with the students that are currently in the programs, how do you think that recent historical musicals have influenced the next generation of students in theater, both in the ways that they create, their characters and their personas and the way that they perform? So what are your thoughts around, how students have taken these influences and are maybe applying and yearning some inspiration from those?
Yeah, okay. So that's a great question. So, right now when I've been teaching here at Lehigh, I'm mostly working with non-music majors. So these are not students that are like planning to try to have a career, and in musical theater or often in music at all. Um, and I find that with a lot of these students, like they tend to they just they have favorite shows, and they're excited to learn more about those favorite shows. And that's really enjoyable to be a part of, to sort of help students peel back the layers a little bit. I mean, these past 2 years, the students have been all excited about Wicked, in part because of the two films that came out. There's a great book by a musical theater historian at Princeton named Stacy Wolf, called Changed for Good, A Feminist History of the Broadway Musical, that has this kind of mind-blowing interpretation of Wicked. And it's so fun to see students see that and be like, oh, I hadn't thought about these things, and to like rediscover this show that they already know really well, in a new way. Um, I will say in my previous job, position, I taught at a university, and I had a lot of musical theater majors, students who wanted to have careers in musical theater. And some of them were tired of Hamilton and they were tired of the history musical. I don't know where they stand now, and yeah, so I don't know. Yeah.
Wonderful. Well, that does bring us to time. Want to say thank you, Monica, for putting this all together, and thank you as well for being willing to travel to New York City this weekend with some of our alumni to go see Operation Mincemeat. I unfortunately will not be available to attend that, but I'm really looking forward to hearing your take on it and getting some feedback from those in attendance. So for everyone, the presentation will be uploaded to the Alumni Relations YouTube channel within the next week or so. If you have any follow-up questions, you can feel free to reach out to the Alumni Relations Office and be on the lookout for some more Mountain Talks coming in 2026. So thank you all for your time and your attention. Thank you, Dr. Hershberger, and we will see you guys in the next one. Have a wonderful day.